Hi, it's Alex Carling, and I'm popping on today to explore and answer some of your questions around how to manage your own and your children's anxieties around the coronavirus pandemic that we're all experiencing at the moment. First and foremost, let me warn you that I'm at home with the children, so I can't promise that I'll be interrupted. However, I've chosen just to go with the flow. I'm also not hiding away upstairs, which I normally would do because we're expecting a skip to be delivered. So if that happens, I need to be downstairs and the children will probably join us. So let's take it as it comes, shall we? I think chaos is amongst us all at the moment, and I'm working hard to accept that, so this included. So let me tell you a little bit about myself actually to start with. So I'm a psychotherapist in private practice. I'm based on Princess Avenue in Hull, and I work with individuals, both adults and young people. And I also work with families, predominantly parents and carers, in the context of therapeutic parenting. So what I do is help parents to have better understanding and knowledge of their children's difficulties, which may be emotional and psychological, but also developmental too. Very much work in the context of trauma as well, so helping parents understand how behaviours and ways of being may be different due to the trauma that the family or the child on a standalone basis has experienced. Which is why I created this event today. So when I created this event, I was still working in the office. I was still seeing clients face to face, and all that now has changed. It has been a very chaotic week. I think my working week, my clinical week, ends on a Wednesday. So I had made plans with clients to see them in the office this week, and then I got into the car and I heard the news about the schools closing. So when I did this event, at that point the schools were still open, but they are no longer, and childcare for many of us, unless you're regarded a key worker, has come to a halt. So we're all finding ourselves at home, contained within the home more often than not, and we're probably with lots of questions and lots of emotions around that are either being explicitly expressed or communicated via behaviour. So I thought this event was really important last week, and I think it's more important this week. So what I've done is I've taken a few questions that have come through either via the event itself or in the group that I manage. So I do have a group, a Facebook group. It's a free one for parents and carers, which is all around self-esteem, managing anxiety, any mental health issues, and hopefully there is a link that's posted with this live video happening. So feel free after this, if you like the content and you like the way that I work, to jump over, because that's where I create most of my content. So I've taken some questions, and I think I have four, really three, because one's quite similar to another one, and it really just to kind of build up some themes, so some ways of being, some ways of communicating with your children that are like thread through all of these questions, and really just to confront some beliefs that I'm picking up on and some influences, so some online influences, and what we may be, the things that may be influencing out of our awareness, or things that we are allowing to influence us but aren't really serving as well. So I'll go into that a little bit more as well. So one question that I've got is being able to explain the importance of, hi Claire, staying at home, washing our hands, not being able to see family and friends, but without scaring our children. I think that's a really, really important one. However, I found, particularly last week, that when I was still seeing my clients face to face, is that scare is around, and it is both rational and valid quite often. So I think some clients, some people that say, do experience anxiety about things that lots of other people may not, for example, their levels of anxiety aren't necessarily different. And in fact, playfully, a lot of them have said that they feel more equipped to deal with this because they've lived with this way of thinking and this emotional heightened emotion for longer than the rest of the population as we're dealing with the coronavirus. So can we talk about how important it is without our children feeling a little bit scared? And I'm not sure that we can. I think that if we've got intelligent children, if we've got, and I mean that cognitively and emotionally, that are able to put the pieces together, that pick up on conversations, that hear the news, then they are going to have questions and they are going to feel an element of fear. And I think that's okay and it's normal. And you've probably heard me say this before, that it isn't about thwarting or reducing necessarily our children's emotions and their thoughts, but it's about helping them walk through it. So, the starting point is the worry, and then it's how we help them come through and go to the end. And bearing in mind that we're all in this together. This isn't just a children thing. This isn't just an anxiety thing. This is an us thing. And we've been saying this, I've seen it online and social media a lot, is that we're in this together, and we're all learning and we're all adapting the best that we can. So I think that accepting that fear is around is really important. And I think that talking about the fear and the thoughts that are part of that is really important, because what that allows us to do as parents and carers is to validate the emotion. Useful things like, I hear you, yes, and I can totally understand why you would feel or think that. And I have a little bit of scare of my own. All that is really validating, and it allows a space to be created for their emotional and psychological well-being through this time. Another thing that it allows us to do, though, is confront the fantasy thinking. So if we do not create the space for them to discuss their fear and their thoughts around the coronavirus, then they are left developing their questions and answers on their own, which could be quite unhealthy and unhelpful. So little snippets from the news, little tail ends of telephone conversations that they may hear you having, that if we do not talk about it as something that is around, because it clearly is, then they're going to create their answers to their own questions as well. So not only does it allow us to validate what they're thinking and what they're feeling, but it also allows us to confront as well, so that they get the correct information. Worried about grandma dying, or I'm worried about that I'm never going to see my friends again. It's not about telling them that everything's going to be okay. It's about, remember, walking them from the beginning to the end. So it's like, how come you think that? So by asking that question, you can open up the dialogue about what it is that they've heard and how they're then interpreting the information. So, so it's not just, it'll be fine. It's not just about saying it's going to be fine. It's about engaging in the dialogue. And you may find that really difficult. No one likes it when their child is feeling scared or vulnerable. Quite often, because we have empathy and compassion, that we feel it on their behalf as well. And when we're already feeling our own, that can feel really challenging. So, I started this by saying I'm accepting my chaotic house and that things may go wrong today. I'm also accepting that fear is around and it's valid and rational. I also want you to accept that sometimes we have a limited capacity to be able to deal with this. That on reflection, we may wish that we'd done things differently, but take each step as it comes, and we are all learning. Okay. Let me see what else I've got. Yeah, so something that's important is to, as a frame of reference, really, when you're dealing with intense emotion and you find it challenging, or it's the negative emotion, the things that cause us discomfort like fear and anxiety, is that what we offer through our attachment with our children is a containment. And by that, it can be a bit misleading, is that it's not about containing it and thwarting it and making it smaller in any way. It is about giving it space, so by containing it. So it's by saying, I hear you, I feel that too, by being curious, by being able to accept, you're giving them a space in which they can express themselves, so that when that moment in time is finished, they're more likely to be able to go off and do other things, because in that moment it was contained. It wasn't pushed aside. So, and it wasn't heightened. You weren't giving a heightened reaction to it or amplifying it in any way. That it's grounded dialogue, and it's contained, it's validated, it's explored, it's made sense of, it's being given information, it's being given cuddles. So that's what I mean when we contain it. So first and foremost, accept the fear is going to be around. Invite the dialogue. Validate your children's emotions. Be curious and ask how come. Find out what it is that they're listening to and how they're interpreting it. And that allows you to confront their fantasy, so they're given the right information, and that will soothe their internal experience. Let me know if you've got any questions. I'm going to move on to the next one, and then we'll do a little recap. Is any questions? So another one is, due to some parents being key workers, some children are aware that schools have closed and that you're no longer going to school. And then someone said, how do we manage the conflicting messages that some children are having to go then back into school? So this parent had said, I'm focusing on safety, and I'm saying that by staying in, we're helping keep people safe. But then I'm saying, but you have to go back to school. And that's a real challenge. But I think it's important to focus on everything that is being done, and about safety, and about that being the thread that runs through everything. So whatever decisions are made, it's because it's safe, and it's because we're doing it to keep people safe. I think that, and also if it wasn't safe, then you wouldn't be going. So if we're using safety then as a way of communicating the changes that children are having to adapt to, then it would maybe sound something like, you can't go to school at the moment because it isn't safe to, and schools need to make sure that they are able to manage everybody's safety. And when the school is full, it's more difficult to manage safety. But when you've got 10 children in the schools, it's a lot easier to manage safety. So by going to school, you are going to be safe, because they would not do anything that isn't safe. I hope that answers your question, and I think that the first one leaks into this one as well, and it's about validating their curiosity and even stroking it. So when I say that, it's about giving positive recognition for the way that they're processing this. I love the way you're thinking. That's a really, really good question. Should we take a little bit of time to see if we can answer it? So even though it may feel like it's a difficult question, you're not putting the pressure on yourself to have all the answers straight away. You're being curious, you're validating, and you're offering that containment. But I think safety, the way that this parent was communicating in the first instance, is a really good way to do it. Hand washing is about safety. Staying in is about safety. It may feel like we are all experiencing hardship. It certainly does for me at the moment. And so it's bound to for our children as well. The play park is only around the corner and we're not able to go to it. And so it's validating the sadness and how hard that is. And I hear you, and it's not going to last forever. And it will be over quickly if we focus on safety. So it's just keeping you safe, just like the police keep us safe, just like the fire brigade keeps us safe. There's lots of other things in life that are able to transfer to this experience, even though this experience is vastly different to anything that we've experienced before. Transfer your skills over. There's lots of things that keep us safe. You don't have to just, kind of be coronavirus is the only thing we need safety from at the moment. The safety is important. Another question was, how do we help children adapt and adjust to working at home? I've got really strong feelings about this. I know that learning is super important. However, I think that our children's well-being at this time and our own well-being as well is just as important. So I'm wondering whether it's our children that need to adjust to learning at home, which I know there is elements of that, but also whether it's our own expectations and whether they need adjusting. I don't know, I imagine that all parents can relate to this, but my 4-year-old child, will eat everything that the childminder puts in front of her. Will she do it at home? No. Even if I say the same words? No, she just will not. So what she can do elsewhere is very different to what she can do here. We made a rainbow for the window today, for example. She brings amazing artwork home. One of them actually, which is framed. This is one of my favourites. So this is a fox made out of leaves. Now, knowing my child as I do, how she had the patience to do this, I do not know. Because I kid you not, when we did this rainbow, she did the inner ring and that was it. And then she was just like, I'm tired and I'm bored. She can bring great work home from the childminders. So my expectations of her at home are massively different, even though I may want her to be able to engage in those things with me so that I can engage with her. She's very different. She performs on a very different level. So I think it's important for us to also manage our expectations. It is massively different. There's lots of other things that they would rather be doing. And the school dynamic is in effect contaminating out their home dynamic. And that's really, really big. And I think that, again, it's that acceptance element of it, that we are not going to get out of our children what school can, or what your childminder can, or what your preschool can. And be okay with that. Your children learn through play, and if you are mindful of where they are at with regards to their math or their English, then you can slip it in and be a little bit more sneaky with it, as opposed to, kind of having to just sit down and do work. I know that's a little bit more tricky when your children are older. But again, I do think that, being flexible and adjusting your expectations will serve you well for sure. There's other things like doing bite-sized pieces of work, about letting them have some control over their downtime. So when you've done this block, what is it that you want to do next? And saying that you will engage with that. So, right, while you're doing that, I'm going to make sure that tea's prepped so that I can be available to do this. I think in the downtime, what I just said is being available to do the activity with them. I think that's really important. And I would encourage you to be focused on connection. So in the time when your children aren't doing their work, focus on connection. And I'm not saying that they don't need any time to themselves, because that's important, but let's consider the feel-good hormones. So we're talking about anxiety being around, we're talking about stress because we want our children to carry on learning, stress because we're all under one roof and it's it's intense. I'm really feeling it. My daughter is 4 and my baby is 8 months, and my house is tiny, so we're really feeling it. So let's focus on the hormones that we want kind of going around our system, as well as all this anxiety and the stress and worry and things. We want dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and endorphins. Okay, so one of the things that, hello to the Philippines, that's good to connect. One of the things that we need to remember then is that whilst we are trying to do all this, there are natural things in our bodies that are going to help us along the way as well. I've seen lots of people doing the Joe Wicks PE lessons, fantastic, as an example. That releases the endorphins, and we need to focus on the natural things that occur in our bodies and that are available and that we can still access while we're on lockdown. And I'm going to cover a few more of those in a little while, but be very mindful and use the downtime with intention to connect. And I think that's going to be really important. So how can I help my child feel safe when there is so much unrest out and about? Again, I think the themes that we've covered so far is validation, containment, and a focus on safety. And, you know, depending on their capacity to understand, help them understand that there are lots of adults in the world that are working super hard to keep you safe, and everybody's learning as we go, and, you know, taking it each day as it comes. And I think that's a really important one as well. If your child is particularly anxious, focus on what's okay right now. Bring them back to the present, because we're all worrying. We're all kind of going like, where is this going to go? And it's important that we do that, because we need to be mindful about all the guidelines that are being given to us at the moment. And that is all about the future and about containment, isn't it, of the virus. But when anxiety is spiking and heightened, help your child come back down to the here and now. You do that through connection. You do that through focusing on what is good and what is helpful. And remember that fear is going to be around. So work hard on accepting it, yours and that of your child as well. It's really important to break cycles of negativity. Now, I speak about this with a lot of my clients, but I want to bring this before we end. If you've got any questions, please put them down in the comments. But breaking cycles is really important, because what happens if our body experiences for a long period of time something that is consistent, like anxiety, like stress and worry? What happens is there is a change in the brain, and therefore the hormones in which our body becomes accustomed to. So our baselines are heightened with anxiety, worry and stress. And if it's heightened over a long period of consistent time, that our baseline almost jumps up a little bit. So what we need to do to stop that happening is break the pattern. So I often talk about it as a cycle. So being on a cycle of anxiety just goes round and round and round. It's about finding a way to come off. And you may well find that you come back on, and that's absolutely fine. But creating the break is important, because what it does is creates a rupture internally and stops that pattern becoming concrete. When I say concrete can be broken. So it can be changed, but it's about managing it in the here and now so that you don't have a problem at the end of it. I'm speaking for the parents and carers, and I'm also speaking for the children as well. But this is an opportunity to help your children walk through the fear and the anxiety around the coronavirus, around what it means for them not being able to go to the gymnastics or the karate or the music class. All this validation and containment and confronting the fantasy thinking is really important. It creates a rupture. It creates a soothing internally. And it means that you take them momentarily off the worry, that you break the cycle momentarily of the stress. So here's some things that you can do to break the cycle, to increase the dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, and release those endorphins. So the endorphins, I've already mentioned Joe Wicks, is get your heart pumping. We are allowed to go outside for one piece of exercise or one period of exercise. So you can do it outside, or you can do it in your own home, but get your heart pumping, and that releases the endorphins. You can use your time outside with intention. So using our senses is a really, really good way to release the dopamine, to release the oxytocin. So we can, for example, go on Pinterest. This is what I did the other day, and one of the activities was to create a chart with a little block of colour, lots of different colours at the bottom, and find things with a bucket that are all the colours on your chart, to bring them home and to stick them onto your chart. So you've got kind of lots of yellows because you've picked petals, and you've got some greens because you've got leaves. Bring the outside in, it gets you looking, it keeps you present. So the worry about the future and what's happening is gone in that moment. We cannot be relaxed and stressed at the same time. So by focusing on the present and engaging in things that feel good, you break the rupture and you bring your child to the present and you give them a break from schoolwork, from thinking about the coronavirus, from the sadness or their anger about not being able to do the things that they've been used to being able to do. Laugh is a great way to release the endorphins and the oxytocin. Use music, to dance, and I guess it's kind of finding that free child in yourself again. That Monday to Friday, I don't know about you, but it's intense. And the way that I see this is it's an opportunity to reconnect with my family, not just my children, but my partner also, because sometimes I just feel I'm up against it all the time, and laughter is thwarted. Music and dance and movement and that connection. Oxytocin is often released when we kiss and we cuddle, when we have contact. Now, your friends may have that when they're at school on the playground, and they're not going to have that as much. So by you being present and prepping tea early, or saying, right, once I've put the washing on the line, I'm all yours, means that you're more available for more of this. Playing with animals. So, there's things about dogs being used as therapy animals and equine therapy and things like that, is because they have a huge soothing impact on us. So by encouraging your children to do something with the animal, to take them for a walk, to teach them a new trick, that engagement keeps them present, it releases the oxytocin and keeps them grounded and creates a rupture in that cycle. And another really useful thing that I use with clients, and I also encourage them to do with their children, because it's a good way to bring what they learn in a therapy room into their home and filter it through with their children, is guided meditation. Now, you can do guided meditations by just accessing YouTube, and I know that there are apps, and I think I'm right in saying that you can get guided meditations on Spotify as well. So you'll just have to have a look. But what it does is they often start with a breathing exercise. So it allows your child to get used to controlling their breathing. And then it facilitates you and your child to use your mind to create a rupture and take yourself off to somewhere that serves you well. So one that I used to use when I worked at the Women's Aid Refuge was, walking through the woods, and you stood in front of a huge tree, and you look up and you see that there's a tree house and no one's there. You climb the tree house, and then you decide to make it your own. You find some paints in the corner. What colour are you going to paint your tree house? And it talks your child and you, because there's ones for adults as well, through a very creative process that does everything that I've listed today. It may be that you don't need to do any of these because your children aren't showing any signs of anxiety or distress due to the coronavirus and what it means for them. But if they are, then please feel free to access any of these, to drop me a message, to come and join our Facebook group for parents and carers. And, government guidelines are to keep us physically healthy, biologically healthy, to try and distance us from the virus so that we can stay well. But let's not lose focus on our emotional and psychological health as well. If you don't have any questions, that's great, and I hope that means that I've answered them. If you do, if you're watching on the replay, if you just put replay and then ask me any of your questions, I'll do my best to keep checking in and answering your questions. This is really good timing coming to an end because my little one is starting to whinge in the kitchen. I can hear him. So I think that's time for a walk. So stay well, keep safe, and I'll see you all again soon. All right, bye.